everybody, it's Trish from the King's Roost, and today we're going to talk about the basics of backyard chicken keeping.
This is our old lady Padma. She's a Brahma hen. She's about 6 years old, which is pretty old. She's the last remaining chicken from our first flock. It's taken her about a month and a half to get used to all the baby chicks, but now she's living happily out here in their run with them. She makes sure that they know who's boss. But other than that, she's pretty chill. Brahma chickens are a notoriously gentle and easygoing breed. And they're good layers, too.
One of the most important things to consider if you're thinking about getting backyard chickens is the rules in your area. Now here in Los Angeles, it is legal to have backyard chickens. You can have as many hens as you want within reason, and you can have up to 1 rooster. The chickens' run and their coop, their living area, needs to be at least 25 feet from your own house, the closest point of your house, and at least 35 feet from your neighbor's house. Garages don't count. We're talking about the actual living area. Now keep in mind, you don't need a rooster for a backyard flock. Chickens lay eggs, just like humans release eggs, whether they're fertilized or not. You're not going to be able to hatch any baby chickens without a rooster, but you will certainly get delicious eggs with all girl chickens. Now, protecting your flock from predators is one of your big concerns as a chicken owner. Every animal in the world wants to eat your chickens. Here in Los Angeles, we have raccoons, possums, skunks, coyotes, neighborhood cats, hawks, even rats that will come after your chickens, so you really need to protect your flock. What we did was we built an outdoor run where we have concrete footers about 9 or 10 inches down into the ground and about 4 inches deep, 4 inches wide, all the way around the perimeter of this yard. It's about 12 feet by 15 feet, and that's a pretty good size for our 12 chickens. When you're planning your chicken run, you should budget about 5 square feet per chicken of run space. On the sides, we have, this stuff is called hardware cloth, and what it basically is a really heavy gauge of wire mesh that is pretty predator proof. It's nice and heavy, and we've stapled it all along these supports. These are hardwood, redwood, and on the top here we have corrugated metal. What this does is keeps it dry in the winter, and it keeps the sun off of them in the summer. It gets pretty hot out here in the summer, so we also have grapevines growing on top of this corrugated metal to sort of provide some insulation so it doesn't just radiate heat in the summertime. Aside from having a safe place to run around outside, your chickens also need a safe place to go at night where they can sleep. So our chickens have this coop. It is all made of wood. You want to use paint that is not poisonous, like a non-VOC paint, because your chickens are going to be inhaling it and you're going to be eating those eggs. And chickens also have pretty sensitive respiratory systems, so try to use a paint that has not too many emissions, and try to use wood that's not been pressure treated, because that has some chemicals in it you might not want. Now, inside your coop, there's a couple things that you're going to want to have for your chickens. We use pine bedding like this. If it gets cold, they can snuggle down into it at night and it's warm, but it also absorbs their waste, so it's nice to clean up and it's not too stinky. You don't want to use cedar. Cedar is very irritating. The oils are very irritating for your chicken's respiratory system, so use pine. You can also use paper towels. Some people use shredded newspaper. Some people use hay. Inside your coop, you're going to need a couple of roosts for your chickens to sleep on at night. They like to sleep as if it was like a tree branch. So that makes them feel safe to get up off the ground. We have 2 long roosts in here. You need about a foot of roost space per grown-up chicken. So we have 2 big roosts, and we have a little roost on the ground here because some of our chickens like to be closer to the ground. You also want to have a feeder inside and a waterer inside. You want to have enough ventilation that the place stays aired out and doesn't get too stinky, but you don't want it to be drafty because chickens can catch cold if it's too drafty on a chilly night. And you'll have to definitely teach your chickens to go back up into their coop every night where it's safe. You do that as the sun is going down by lifting each of them up and putting them in. After a couple of days or weeks, they'll start going in by themselves. Something else your coop is going to need is an egg box. Now, most egg boxes are sort of built onto the outside of the coop like this with its own little lid so that it's very easy to grab the eggs. And what you've got in here is a couple little
nesting boxes. We've closed ours off with cardboard because our chickens aren't laying yet, and if you allow the chickens to sort of hang out in there and sleep in there and poop in there, they're going to be much more resistant to laying. They like to lay in a place that's really clean. So you want to keep this kind of clean and sectioned off from the rest of the coop until they're ready to start laying. And then when they do start laying, they're not really going to know what they're doing at first. They're just going to sort of pop out an egg wherever they happen to be. And so in order to teach them to lay in here, you take the cardboard out and then put maybe some ping pong balls, 2 or 3 ping pong balls, or we sell little wooden eggs at the store for this purpose. Put a couple of those in each of these boxes, and they'll gradually get the point that this is where they are supposed to lay their eggs, which makes it very easy for you to come and collect them every day. That's the fun part. Something else to decide is what you want your chickens to run around on. Chickens love hay, so you can keep hay in your run and just sort of turn the hay over every few days or every week and then rake it all out once in a while and replace it. We used to do hay, but we found what's easier is we use now a sort of organic compost material, a topsoil made of all organic compost. We packed it down real firm, and we just let the chickens run around, and then we scoop their poop with this little shovel. Every once in a while we completely rake out all their old unused food and feathers, and we keep it all in this red bin. It makes for fantastic compost material. Chicken poop and chicken feathers are highly compostable. Your yard will love it. And every once in a while we just throw down a couple more bags of organic compost on the ground here, stomp it down flat, and we mix in a little bit of gravel and a little bit of grit so that the chickens have grit in their diet. That's really important. Chickens digest their food in their crop. Their crop is like a pouch right at the top of their digestive system. And all the food they eat sits there before it, all the food they eat sits there before it goes down into their stomach. And it kind of gets churned around with little tiny pebbles and stones, and that's what breaks up their food. They don't chew. So it's really important that your chickens have access to grit, little tiny stones. You can buy it at the shop, you can buy it at any feed store, and just sprinkle it around on the ground. They'll find it. Something we found is really helpful for our chickens is to give them roosts outside in the yard. And the younger you introduce roosts to your chickens, the more they're going to love them throughout their life. Chickens, when they're really little, baby chicks, are super, super curious, and they check out everything. As they get older, they're a little more sedentary. So if you teach them when they're young to sit on hanging trapezes, and you can see we've hung some ropes over here, hemp ropes. They like to jump on them, swing on them, climb on them, and it gives them something to do, and it maximizes the vertical space in the run. But do that when they're young, because they'll play on them when they're young, and they'll use them for their whole life if you do it early enough. Let's talk about chicken poop. You're going to have to do a lot of cleaning of chicken poop if you're going to have chickens. They eat all day, and they poop all day. Most chicken poop is pretty innocuous. It doesn't actually smell too bad. Take a look at this poop right here. This is a pretty normal chicken poop. Kind of solid, you can see this white stuff. This is, instead of pee, what they do is that all their ammonia solids are in that white thing. Chickens have an interesting system. They have a Seagull Poop a few times a day. Now what happens is part of their digestive system diverts a little bit of their food into a separate pouch where it sits and ferments and extra nutrients are absorbed. And every once in a while they empty that little pouch and you get a really stinky, really nasty poop that looks more like this. If you get something that looks like that, don't worry, it's not diarrhea. They can be kind of orangey or runny or even foamy. They smell pretty gnarly, but they're perfectly healthy. You want to give your chickens continuous access to fresh, clean food all the time. There are lots of commercial chicken feeds available on the market. You can also make your own. Chickens are omnivores, so you can give them table scraps, you can give them snacks. You got to be careful. There's a couple of things that you can't give them. No avocados. Don't give them citrus, garlic, or onions. You don't want to give them raw eggs because they'll start learning to eat their own eggs and each other's. Let's see, you don't want to give them sugar. Apple seeds, be careful. They love apples, but don't leave the entire apple out there where they might get the seed. Here's the feed that we give our chickens. It's a pellet that's also mixed with some seeds, some grains, some oyster shells for calcium.
You can give them plenty of table scraps. You just want to make sure that your chickens are getting a balanced diet. They need lots of calcium for their egg production, and they just need a balanced diet without too much salt or too many chemicals. You don't want to give them anything with yeast in it, no leavened bread or anything like that. That can give them a thrush infection in their crop. It's sometimes a problem that rodents will get into your chicken's food, so it's often a good idea to hang your chicken's feeders underneath their coop or from a wood frame or something. Keep it a little bit off the ground. You're also going to need to provide clean water at all times for your chickens. Change it every day. Swish it out when it starts to get dirty. They'll kick a lot of stuff into it. Keeping it up off the ground helps. You can either put it up on blocks like this or hang it. And there's lots of different waterers that you can use. There's little water nipples that you can put in a bucket or in a PVC pipe. They're almost like little gerbil or hamster feeders where they peck at it and a little bit of water drop comes out. That keeps the water nice and clean and nothing can get into it. Chickens generally live to be 3 to 5 years old is the most common. Some chickens can live to be 7, 9 years old. We even have a friend who's got a 12-year-old chicken. But 3 to 5 years, especially for chickens that lay a lot of eggs, that's about normal. They start to lay when they're about 20 weeks old. They're considered pullets, or teenagers, basically from the age of about 8 weeks to about 20 weeks old when they're mature. These chickens are all between the ages of 16 and 18 weeks old, except for our old lady Padma, who is 5, almost 6 years old now. She's quite an old lady. Chickens are very hierarchical, and they are very territorial and tribal. And they will bond with their flock and create a very clear pecking order. Pecking order is a very real thing. They literally peck at each other to establish dominance and to exert control and influence over one another. Sometimes it can turn the corner and go from just bossing each other around to something more akin to bullying, and you have to watch out for that. Every once in a while you'll get a chicken who is so aggressive that you may need to send them off to a farm and get them out of your flock. But for the most part, they will solve their own problems and come up with a pecking order, and everybody will live in harmony with each other. It's very hard to introduce new chickens, however, to your flock. So I recommend getting the number of chickens you think you're going to want instead of saying, hey, let's start with 2, and then if we like it, we can add more. You might even want to get a couple more chickens than you think you're going to need because, of course, not all of them are going to make it. Chickens do get sick. Some chickens just have a failure to thrive and never really make it to adulthood. And sometimes you'll end up with a chicken who's aggressive or mean or a rooster, and you're going to have to give them back. You need to decide what age chickens you're going to get. So there are benefits to starting with older hens who are about ready to lay or maybe even already laying. That's wonderful. It takes a lot of the work away for you. But sometimes chickens are not that friendly. They might not be that tame. They might be a little jumpy. They don't know you yet. Very, very possible to make friendly chickens out of sort of wild or older chickens, but you're going to need to spend a lot of time handling them. If you want to start with baby chicks, it's very rewarding, but a lot of work. Baby chicks are about this big when they're 1 day old. If you get them at a day or a week old, you will find that you're going to need to keep them at 95 degrees in a brooder, which is a little pen that you can construct out of cardboard or poster board or foam core. You can even buy commercial brooders. Basically, it's just a safe, warm spot that's free of any drafts. You're going to line the floor with either pine shavings or paper towel or shredded newspaper. Give them fresh baby chick food and fresh water. They're going to make a big mess, kicking that stuff all over the place. You're going to need to check their water and their food several times a day to make sure that it's clean and there's no poop in it. Keep the brooder very clean. Baby chicks are susceptible to lots of diseases, most of which are caused by essentially bacteria and dirty conditions in the brooder. If you get your chicks at an early age, it's obviously wonderful that you can handle them right away. They'll grow up to be very friendly, very docile, very tame because they're so used to you. You need to be very careful with children because children love chicks, but chicks are very, very fragile. Make sure your children wash their hands and know to handle them very, very gently. Baby chicks are also rather jumpy. They don't really like to be held, so you need to teach your kids to be quite patient. The best thing to do is just sit on the floor of the brooder for a while. Baby chicks are extremely curious. They will all come over and jump on your lap and jump all over you if you just sit there for a little while and you're still. Chasing them around is usually not the best way to get their trust and get them to sit with you. Overall, having backyard chickens is a very rewarding and fun project. They make terrific pets, and it's absolutely great to have fresh eggs all the time. It does take some work, and the fact is, putting a little bit of work in every single day is much, much better for you and the chickens than from putting in a big chunk on the weekends. So make sure, if you're going to get chickens, that you have some time to devote every day to your chickens. You need to look at them, make sure they're looking and acting normal. You need to give them fresh food and water every day. Every couple of days, you're going to need to clean out their hen house, at least scoop the poop out of it, or maybe change all of the shavings. And maybe every other week or so, you're going to need to completely rake out their yard, or you're going to need to scoop poop on a daily basis like you might do for your dog. So all in all, I would guess that we put about a half hour of care into our chickens every single day. Sometimes a little bit more when we do a thorough clean of their house. Sometimes we like to come and just sit outside and let them run around the yard, and we'll spend hours out here with them. But plan on about a half hour a day to keep your chickens happy and healthy.